This is Mr. Precella working out the second review sheet for my Math 1314 college algebra class, and we're beginning with circles here. It says find the center radius form of the equation of a circle. Well, the center radius form for an equation of a circle looks like this: x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And our center is the HK, so I'll work it right here. The HK is -6, -4. That's the center, HK. And the radius is 3. So when we replace this red h with the red -6, let's see what we'll have. We'd have x minus, this black minus is that one right there, a -6. So that minus a negative, that red negative is going to make that into a plus squared plus y minus k squared. K is a red -4, so minus, there's my red -4 squared equals 3 squared. Oh, we're not going to leave that as 3 squared. We'll go ahead and state it as 9. So let's see, what is it? B? X plus 6 squared plus y plus 3 squared equals 9. And in algebra, I think I mentioned before, the way you always do the stuff in one way, then you do it in another. Then you do it in reverse. And so, given the center and the radius, here's how you write the center radius form of the equation of the line. How would you go in reverse? If you were given the equation in standard form, problems 2 and 3 involve find the center and the radius. How would you then go backwards? Well, we would need to write it with the square, the parentheses. So that's our goal, to get it written in this form for problems 2 and 3. Because once you have it written in this form, to find the center, you would just change the sign of the number in the parentheses with x, then change the sign of the number in the parentheses with y, and the square root of 9, take the square root of that last number. So, doing problem number 2, let me write it down. It says find the center, and here it is, 3x squared plus 3y squared minus 12x plus 18y minus 9 equals 0. Well, our goal is to get it written in this form here. If we started expanding this x minus h squared, x minus h times x minus h, when you FOIL that out, you get an x squared, not a 3x squared. So if this first number, the coefficient in front of x squared, is not a 1, you divide straight through by it. So I'm dividing through by 3. And we have x squared plus y squared minus 4x plus 6y minus 3 equals 0. And now let's rewrite it, grouping the x's together and grouping the y. So we have x squared minus 4x. I'll put a plus blank. I'm about to add a green number in a moment. Now here, this is purple. I don't know if you can tell these colors. Usually you can. So group the y's together, put that purple plus blank, equals, move the 3 over, and if we're going to add a green number to the left in order to keep this stuff equal, we better add a green number to the right, and the same thing for the purple number. We're going to put a perfect square here so that this stuff will factor as a perfect square trinomial. By a perfect square trinomial, I mean one of these things with parentheses squared. If you factor them with trial and error, you'd get the same thing in both sets of parentheses. How do we figure out the number that goes there? Well, it has to do with that number right there. You take half of it and then square it. Half of 4 is 2. 2 squared is 4. So I'm putting a green 4 on both sides. Now for the y's, this number, take half, so 6 over 2 is 3, and then square it, 9. I'm adding a 9 to both sides. Now, if you tried to factor x squared minus 4x plus 4, whether you factor, if you just do it by trial and error, you're going to get the same thing in both sets of parentheses. What would it be? Well, x, since the second sign is plus, 2 of the first, so minus 2 times 2 squared. So notice how we're making this stuff look like this. Once it's written in the center radius form, we can easily find the center and the radius. Okay? Now, do the same thing with the y's. Well, how would we factor y squared plus 6y plus 9? It'd be y plus 3 times y plus 3. And you can FOIL that out and convince yourself. I think I told you if you were ever to have really messy stuff, it's do you see that pattern? It's this variable, the very next sign, square root of that number. Y, the next symbol, plus square root of 9 is 3. Equals, what is that, a 16? Now once you have it in this form, to find the center, change the sign of the number in the parentheses with x, then change the sign of the number in the parentheses with y. There's your answer. So let's see, what would that be? No, it's A, isn't it? 2 negative 3. And it doesn't ask, but if you needed to find the radius, it'd be the square root of that last number, so 4. I mentioned that because I think the next one, they're asking for the radius. Problem 3, same type of problem, except it says find the radius. So let me write down number 3. We'll start off by dividing straight through by 2. Once again, because if you started expanding this, you were not going to get a 2x squared, you would get an x squared. Okay? So problem number 3. 2x squared plus 2y squared minus 24x plus 36y plus 216 equals 0. So divide through by 2. And we'd have x squared plus y squared minus 12x plus 18y plus 108 equals 0. Group the stuff together, group the x's together. So x squared minus 12x, put plus blank. Now I'll group the y's together. This is called completing the square, by the way. We're going to put a number in here so that we have a perfect square trinomial. By that I mean something that'll factor parentheses squared. Plus blank equals, I'll move that 108 over, plus blue blank, green blank plus purple blank. Okay, so factoring this stuff. Excuse me, not factoring, completing the square here. Take half of this number and then square it. So if we write that number, you take half and square it. I'm writing it out in words here. Let's take half and square. Half of 12 is 6, 6 squared 36. If you're wondering about what about the negative? Well, if you want to say half of negative 12 is negative 6, once you square the negative 6 times negative 6, you're still going to get a positive. That's why I don't usually worry about saying negative. Just half of 12 is 6, 6 squared 36. What about here? Half of 18 is 9, 9 squared is 81. Now, this particular problem, we're only interested in the, number 3, the radius. We're not told to find the center, so we don't need to do this factoring over here. The thing that determines the radius is the number on the right. Take the square root of the number on the right. So let's see. Negative 108 plus 36 plus 81. Let's see, that's 117 minus 108, that's a 9. So the radius will be the square root of 9, which is 3. Now if you just want to practice factoring and finding the center over here, that's fine. This would be what, a x minus 6 squared. And the y's would factor as what, a y plus 9 squared. So if it asks to find the center, which it doesn't, it's asking for the radius. So we don't really need to do that. Once you get the 9, that's it. Take the square root, there's your radius 3. So, but if you needed the center, it'd be positive 6, negative 9. Change the sign of the number in the parentheses with x, then change the sign of the number in the parentheses with y. Okay? So that's the first 3 problems on the review sheet dealing with circles. Okay? Thanks for watching. This is Mr. Precella.